Chelsea from The Amazing Race. You and your partner Robin were sent home on Thursday nights, and it was just one of those legs. Nothing was going right. I loved that at one point you said, "Do you just want to go swimming?" And y'all just jumped in the water. At what point did you know that the race was over for you two?
Hi, thanks for having me. So I would say when I got back from the little tchotchke challenge, that was pretty much that felt like we were pretty done. You don't ever want to give up on the race. But then to get lost on our way to Pivka Jama, which those words are like, I'm traumatized by those words. That at that point, getting lost in Pivka Jama was definitely the nail in the coffin for us. So like by the time we got to the caves, we didn't run, we just enjoyed how absolutely stunning that place was. So yeah.
How much anxiety do you have, especially when you're the one doing the roadblock and you see these other teams leave? What is that like when you're the one that has to go back?
I didn't see them leave, right? I just knew that I didn't see anybody there after that. Like it was really clear to me that they'd all gotten through in the first time. And I was actually kind of so shocked that we weren't far behind the first teams, right? But by the time I got to putting on my little display, they were long gone. And that was a little bit intimidating that they had done that so quickly because it was like a little bit hard to undo the thing and to put the thing like it was not just putting the things on. It was like putting a puzzle together. And then, like I said on the show, when Anna Lee stumbled up a bit, I was like, okay, I might have a little bit of a chance here. And then I stumbled up a bit. And then Annalie her Rapunzel hair was flowing in the wind. And I was left to my own devices for my magically humiliating walk through Slovenia.
It did seem like navigation was the most difficult, not just for you, but the last three legs. Morgan and Lena, they couldn't find a parking ramp. And then Andrea and Milena, before that, they didn't even finish that leg. They had to get pulled out of the race. So was that really the struggle for you the most, was trying to figure out how to navigate through the self-navigation?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's so easy because in the first four legs, you're just like, I had a bad cab driver, I had a bad rickshaw driver, and it's like, here's the keys, and there's no one to blame but yourself. And the Autobahns, they don't have any exits, so there's so little room for error. They don't, you don't see it on the show, but like every parking garage there is to find is a nightmare to find. You have because you can't just like go into the wrong parking garage casually. Um, so there's there's all these extra complications that the viewers don't even notice that kind of make everything that much more stressful and dramatic, I guess. But yeah, I didn't realize the parking garages would be such a nightmare. Um, Navigation was never going to be our strong suit, and we've gotten a lot of flack for following John and Greg, but for us to go find directions with somebody and then to do that on our own, I I guess I knew how it would read on TV, but it just seemed like a calculated bet at that point to just follow them versus take the half an hour to figure it out and then get lost anyways.
And we've become so reliant on GPS. I think it's hard to recognize watching something on TV how GPS reliant we are these days.
Yeah. I mean, I looked up Kim and Penn said they went to a map class or something. And they were also what newscasters that used to have to go places and find places. There's no map reading classes where I live. Like I wanted to be better at this and I become not only reliant on my phone, but relying on my husband as well. So
Well, and even Todd and Ashley, we saw they missed an exit on this leg and they went from way up at the front. They lost a lot of time just from missing one single exit.
mhm. Yeah, we did the same thing at one point. So that's like literally you're going up the freeway for 45 minutes and there's nowhere to get off.
Well, you and Robin seem to get along pretty well throughout this race. What was the key to not sort of losing it on each other? Is that just a lifelong friendship? Like, You weren't at each other's throats as much as some of the other teams.
I think that Robin would get real frustrated and then I would shut up. And that doesn't make for good TV necessarily, because there'd be moments where they'd be like trying to get my reaction and I'm just like lips are zipped. Um, and then I talked about it at some point on the race, but just giving her time to sort out her feelings about things, and then we could keep like move forward. But just an underlying respect for each other and recognizing that we deal with situations differently, and just giving her the space that she needed to get better. And I maybe need to over communicate sometimes, and that wouldn't work. So I think just giving each other space.
So are you maybe the non-confrontational one or the less comfort? Like if in that situation, you're just like, okay, I just need a minute to be quiet.
Yeah, because I know whatever I'm going to say is not going to be helpful.
You two are childhood friends. How far back does this go? I mean, how long have you known each other? And
Um,
what made you decide you wanted to do this race together?
so we have been friends since seventh grade,
Wow.
and then we, ran around town being drunken idiots in our early 20s, and then went our separate ways, and then we had kids and came back together. Um, we lived about an hour away from each other, so it wasn't like she's in the same neighborhood or anything. But I came over one day and she had just gotten so physically fit, and I was also quite physically fit, and we were just kind of like, hell yeah, like 40, and like on top of it, I'm running faster than I've ever run before. She can climb a rope 9 times in a row to the ceiling, and like a high ceiling. And it just occurred to us. I think then we started talking about reality TV, and it was just like light bulbs over our head. Um, and so I took a couple more trips out there to take the video, and I learned how to edit the video, and then we sent it in and didn't hear anything, and then we got the call.
And you were the last all-female team standing, one of the oldest teams still standing. I mean, you have these young guys like Liam and Jeremy. I mean, you beat some pretty strong teams. So kudos to you for making the top six. What was your favorite experience on the race out of all of the challenges?
Hmm. Well, I have to admit, of all the challenges,
Or just you can say whatever your favorite memory from the race.
my favorite memory is being in the airport after we were eliminated, and we happened to be with Phil and Bertram, and we were having the funniest conversation with them, and they were so genuine, and it was like completely hilarious. And just to they're like so upper echelon as far as, entertainment industry mogul type people, and to be having this like down to earth hilarious conversation with them was definitely my favorite moment.
What do what kids think about watching this on TV? Did you all have watch parties or anything like that?
Yeah, my da- my daughter, my 3-year-old is like, F this. Like he's not here for it. And it was so funny. Like right as we were watching it the other day, I'm like coming to tears in the video, and I'm like, this will be so my kids are gonna have so much fun watching this. And like my 5-year-old daughter is like so over it at that point in time. And my 3-year-old is screaming and crying. And I was like, oh, like that's kind of funny, the time lapse on this particular moment of the show of my real life now. So I think they'll probably enjoy it more in a few years.
And you two had a couple early scares. I mean, the first couple legs, you were in the back of the pack, but then you did up winning leg four. What was that like to get a win? I think you won a trip to Spain. Is that correct? So, what was that like when Phil was like, "You're team number one"? I think that was like that needle in the haystack one. So, I think you knew you were team number one because everyone was
Yeah.
crazy.
It was just very surreal, I would say. And it was just super exciting. I think that moment, like the moment we got to that temple and I saw Corey looking, there's just these little moments in the race where you're like, oh, I've got a chance. Like you see this like Greek god, and he's still looking for something, and you're like, oh, like I can find something, like this is not that complicated a situation. And so I happened to like, luckily where I started was close to where my tile was. That obviously helped in that regard. But yeah, like were in the depths of despair in a bus station at at 12 a.m. to go from that to like, we weren't last, we were like super duper duper last. I managed to finagle us onto a bus at the same time as the other teams, but we were even supposed to be an hour behind them, which was just not good for morale. And so to go from like super duper extra last to then be on the mat first was a very triumphant feeling for sure.
And what did this race mean for you and Robbin, and your friendship, and just what will you take from this experience with you?
I think I'm just really a big story lover, and that was our main objective for getting on the show, is to be able to share Robbin's story with the world. And I know she gets messages on a regular basis now of people who are dealing with brain surgeries that are coming up in a few days. I'm sure that there's widows out there who can relate to her. So being able to share what she went through and how far she's come, and to be able to get onto the Amazing Race and do really well, I think that that's what we take away. Like that's how we won in this experience, is being able to share that story.
It certainly was a great story, and of redemption and being able to overcome adversity. So it was fun to watch you too. Sorry it had to end this early. I wish I was interviewing you a little bit later in the season, but it was fun to have you. And thanks for chatting with Gold Derby today.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.